next up, myself and Kieran are going to talk to you about visual content, data visualization in specific. So I love numbers. I use numbers to help me better understand the world around me, and I use numbers in ways to better understand myself. And we live in an age that's replete with numbers. It's replete with data. And sometimes when you're drowning in data, any tools which help you aggregate, contextualize, and ultimately understand those numbers is really, really useful. So data visualization does precisely that. Perhaps the best way for me to illustrate what it is by showing you an example. So this, although it might look crude, this is one of the world's most celebrated examples of data visualization for its effectiveness. So what it does is it takes these billion-dollar numbers that we always hear in the news, but find it very hard to wrap our head around in terms of what they actually mean. So what the author has done here is he's charted the billion-dollar spends, and he's told us what they are, like pink is giving, purple is fighting, black is owing, and very quickly we can start seeing how the world spends its money. We can start comparing things. So for example, we can see the year of this is 2010, by the way. So we can see in the year 2010, BP's revenues from oil were $239 billion. So that's pretty impressive. The profits, not the revenue, but the profits from the illegal drugs trade was $352 billion. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? We can also see the predicted cost of the war with Iraq was $60 billion. The actual cost of the war with Iraq was that monstrous lump of money right there, $3,000 billion. If you were to ask, well, what about the cost of the global financial crisis? Dunk. There it is. Wow, you know? And why this is a brilliant example of data visualization is we all just got such a great understanding of all the numbers we were presented with. And beyond that, I don't know about you, but they make me feel something. Like some of them make me laugh, some of them make me a bit angry, some of them scare me. And that's what great data visualization does, is it helps you understand, and it starts, you know, a narrative starts building in your head of what these numbers mean. So for my money, data visualization is a digital marketer's, particularly a content marketer's, best friend. There's a lot of science underpinning this. Essentially, what it all boils down to is humans absorb images faster than we absorb text, and we recall images an awful lot better than we recall text. But a far more compelling reason as to why data visualization is a digital marketer's best friend is that it's, you know, incredibly shareable. So in Wolfgang Digital, we see examples of data visualization being shared every day. And there's three common themes that we see underpinning the content that gets shared. So number one is there's great design. There's a lot of crap infographics out there, and they're all info and no graphic. I'm sure you've seen them. So number one underpinning stuff that gets shared is good design. Number two is the numbers are personal. They're not just abstract numbers, but they're something that means something to us, to our communities. And number three, and this is the hardest one to do, is the numbers tell a story. And if they can tell a story, they can elicit emotion. And if people are sufficiently motivated, they will then go and share it. So what we'll do now is we'll talk you through a case study, data visualization case study of ours. So we've been doing search marketing for DAFT for some time. We're really proud to be working with one of Ireland's maybe most iconic digital media brands. So we wanted to knock their socks off. We wanted to do something to really impress them. So we did a brainstorm internally. We looked at everything they were doing. And we said, well, where could we help them do something better? And we settled on the quarterly rental report. Lots of you will be familiar with this. It's a brilliant piece of research. It's highly useful, and you'll be familiar with it because it gets fantastic coverage in the traditional media. When we deep dove into the analytics, what we found was there was very few eyeballs actually landing on this online. And the eyeballs that did land on it only landed when Ronan there was talking about it. So Ronan's brilliant on radio, you'll have seen him on TV, and when he's talking about this, it's a big news story. But when Ronan stops talking after a couple of days, nobody's looking at this online anymore. So we went to DAFT and said, we think via data visualization, we can get you a lot more eyeballs on that, we can get it shared, and we can make it a longer news story. So they gave us the go-ahead, fair play to them. So when we're working with data visualization, we're essentially working, this is our raw material right here, and what we need to do is translate this into a narrative and make people feel something. you could say we're trying to transform this data set into a mindset. So lots of the Wolfgangers are renters. I'm a renter. And we sat around, the more we looked at the numbers, the more frustrated we got and the more unfair we felt it was. So we kind of felt we're actually sitting on content marketing gold here because this is relevant to half the country. And just by looking at the numbers, we're feeling something, we're pretty sure we can create some data visualization that elicits emotion. So the first thing we need to do is get the design right. So Jen, our head of creative, came up with two very different styles for Daft. And she said, this one is on brand. These are the Daft colours. And that's, you know, us presenting the emotion, the data like that. This one's very different. This breaks some of the rules of graphic design. Technically, you're not supposed to have bright colours on a black background because people find it kind of agitating. And this is all news to me. I didn't realise this, but seemingly there's certain ways you can use colour to make people, that will impact people's emotion. So for those reasons, this was actually precisely what we should be using. And fair play to the Daft marketing manager. He was really bold and he said, I don't know why, but I like this one. Let's go with that. So with the design nailed, next thing we had to do is we had to create our narrative. So the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to tell everybody this is relevant to you. So there we have the map of Ireland and we have the year-on-year rent increases across the country. As we move down, we want to pull people deeper into the narrative. So we have here, we're showing them the trends in rents over time. We've pulled out some horror stats, like rent is up 26% in Dublin during that time. We go on to talk about, here's the most expensive area, here's the cheapest area, and that's kind of common sense. So people are saying, oh, I know a little bit about this, you know, that's what I would have thought it is. Then we're getting really personal. You can't get much more personal with people, except, well, there's hardly I can't think of any other ways to get more personal than talk to people about their bedrooms. So we're essentially saying if you have this many bedrooms and you live in these areas, this is what we expect you'll pay. So we're now moving to the second last part. So because we're coming to the end of the infographic and we're trying to create an emotion here, we really need to start turning up the dial. So we show this graph showing that supply is falling off a cliff, that there's 40% less out there. And those of you in the audience will know this. If you've been looking to rent a place in the last year and a half, all of a sudden this starts, evoking the memories of those, really awkward, crowded viewings you went to on a Thursday night and it was a total waste of time and you start getting angry remembering that. And then we go for our big finish. So we've tapped into that most quintessential question in Ireland, and it's discussed at dinner tables and bar stools all over the country, is should you rent or should you buy? And we've gone back very personalised with the data. We've gone back to your bedrooms, where you are, and to our horror, the data told us that some renters are paying twice as much as their neighbours who are homeowners for the privilege of renting. And we leave it at that. And we hope that we've brought people on a journey there, that they're sufficiently motivated and sufficiently frustrated and angry that they're going to hit that share button. I think it was Jen who said it to me that misery loves company. So hopefully that'll motivate people to share. So now that the data, the creative is done, the mistake that lots of people make is you go, okay, well, let's publish it and see what happens. But you really have to be proactive in getting eyeballs on it to get it going. So I'm delighted to welcome Kieran to the stage, and he's going to talk to you about how we promoted the infographic.
Cheers, Alan. So I'm going to talk about just some of the promotion that we put behind the infographic. So we had some Facebook, Twitter, and Taboola. I suppose the reason we use these is because these platforms are they're very visual. You can personalize the creative, and you can also evoke an emotion with these platforms. So first up, we have Facebook. So this is targeting people in Cork with an image of Cork City and then a personalised message for the people of Cork City, telling them how the landlords in Cork are living it up and it's not so good for Cork renters. So straight away you can see it's visual, the message is personalised, and we're also evoking an emotion, and in many cases that emotion is anger. So Facebook has unparalleled reach. You might all be familiar with the stat that the Late Late Toy Show is the best means of reaching an Irish audience. It has 1.2 million viewers. Well, you can reach that every day on Facebook. At the moment, as Sarah mentioned, you're getting fantastic CPCs. As I said, it's visually friendly. Twitter as well. Twitter gives you kind of the same means. It's visually friendly. You can personalise the message again. And as well, you can evoke that emotive response. Twitter is slightly more expensive and it doesn't drive as much traffic. People tend to stay on Twitter that bit more. But you have that influential audience on Twitter. But as well, we all know that nowhere does news get older faster, so it's kind of got a shorter shelf life. Next up, we use Taboola. So I don't know if many of you are aware of Taboola. It's a content sharing platform where you can share articles on the likes of news sites like The Guardian or The Independent. And again, it's visual and you can personalize the message. Taboola is driving lots of traffic. It's incredibly cheap. It's not as social as Twitter and Facebook, so it's got a longer shelf life, so you can prolong the activity there. We also undertook some outreach. So the outreach was in the form of contacting people like entertainment.ie, sharing the infographic with them, and they were good enough to put it on their homepage that day. We also made contact with Reddit and some influential Redditors, and they started a conversation there that ended up driving a lot of traffic to the website. There was also this kind of virality that took place. So this was happening unbeknownst to us. Like Broadsheet picked it up, and Joe.ie picked it up on the day as well, and they were sharing it on their homepage. Now, I'm not going to talk about SEO or anything. Brendan's going to talk about that in a while, but infographics are really great for SEO as well because they can get you links back to your website. Sharing as well, like there was a lot of sharing went on, particularly on Facebook around the infographic, and it was all pretty much tied into that emotion of anger. So people started tagging their friends, saying, "Look at this." People are using like the C word in their messages, and then people were referring to landlords as scum landlords and landlord cartels as well. So it's really evocative and really aggressive language. People then started writing essays on the stuff. So like it's just the only word I can think of is like it's a diatribe on the situation. So like I think it was visual, we personalized the message, but then more importantly I think it was just evoking that emotion of anger that got so much sharing. So in terms of results, on the day of the infographic, it was the best day for traffic ever for Daft. The first 2 days, 54% of the traffic was free. So that's traffic from Reddit, from the likes of Broadsheet, from free traffic from Facebook. And like there was a lot of kind of paid promotion went into the first few days as well. So getting 54% free traffic in the first 2 days is a stat that we're very happy with. Alan mentioned as well that the report it often lived and died within a day or two. So one of the objectives was to prolong the interest in the report over a 4-week period. And here you can see that we achieved that, and we actually drove 5 times more traffic to the report for this rental report than the previous best as well. So I just want to finish up with these last few kind of images. So this is us in the office, and it kind of demonstrates the response that we had for the infographic. It was one of the first campaigns where the whole team were involved. So content, creative, paid social, and PPC, everyone was involved. So we all were quite attached to it. And so this is day 2 when we're looking at real-time Google Analytics. And we actually see that the traffic that was delivered to the report exceeded what we projected for the whole lifetime of the campaign. So again, emotive responses. So that's our infographic case study. I'm going to hand back to Alan.